25 years of independent and fearless journalism. Hello, and thank you for joining us from wherever you are. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Kukumlimle. Digital address GA099-2539. Our top stories this hour. Today we have more of the brighter side as 83 of Ghana's 641 coronavirus cases recover. But we'll be delving deeper into the dynamics of recoveries as possibilities emerge about traces of the disease in stools of recovered patients linger. We'll hear from experts on what this means, even as another patient escapes in the Upper West region. Also coming up, 1 billion of tax cedis to be spent on free electricity. But how can you access that relief? Those are questions we've put to authorities. We'll bring you the answers. And also coming up, sandstorms in the midst of coronavirus. That's the warning for meteorologists, and the focus is in the northern and upper east regions as residents complain. We're live on the ground as we see clarification from the Meteo Agency. We'll be going to the Upper West and Northeast for the sandstorm stories. But tell your friends to tell other friends to join us on DSTV 421, GoTV 144. Remember, we are streaming live on YouTube. You want to join us with your thoughts, your opinions, your questions on 0540-109009. My name is Gifty Andopia. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest. Welcome to the details of those stories now. Let's begin with the sandstorms. Most part of the northeast and upper west regions have been covered in dust, and residents are worried. We'll be finding out here why that is happening. And also the story indeed is that many residents of the northeast and upper west region say they've been worried about the volume of dust particles in the air there. The residents describe the situation as a dust storm. Visibility is said to be so poor that you can hardly see beyond 100 meters. There are now fears of possible respiratory conditions, and you don't want that, especially when we are already battling coronavirus. Northeast Regional Correspondent Ilyasu Tanko has been speaking to some residents. We'll bring you the sounds from that conversation that our correspondent Ilyasu Tanko had with some residents there. But Ilyasu himself joins me on the line right now, so we can have a quick chat with him. Hello, Ilyasu.
Hi.
Ilyasu, give us a mental picture. I mean, we do see the pictures there, the videos that you sent through, but give us a mental picture of how it feels to be in this situation. How bad is it?
Well, this is a meteorological phenomenon never seen before in the region. According to residents that I've spoken to, what is happening is that yesterday in the night, the cloud was very cloudy in the night. We saw some flashes of lightning, and so many residents went to sleep thinking that there would be some showers of rain, only for them to wake up, see a very hazy cloud, poor visibility, and right now what is happening is that if you walk a little distance, you will find some white particles on your head, and you can see that from motorists and travelers who are coming from especially the northern part of the region in the upper east and upper west region. You see these fine white particles on their head, and the weather is also very hazy. The sun is not all that clear, and you can feel some heat. Where I am in Wale, you can feel some heat in your body, and this has brought a lot of worry to the residents here.
And these are some of the residents that you've been talking to. Hang on for me, Leah, so I'll come back to you. Let's listen to those residents now.
before like this. Because now the farmers are preparing to go to farm. By how to the weather be, they will pray to get the rain. By the rain too not fall. So since maybe last 3 days a day, we are seeing the signs like the rain want to fall, but it can't fall. So this morning, when we are waking this morning, we see some like harmattan, but it's not harmattan. And then the rain too no fall. So we have heat here. How we don't understand it because we don't see it before. So now we are praying God maybe before today or tomorrow we'll get rain, and then the farmers will come start their job.
So those are some of the residents who've been speaking to my colleague Ilyasu Tanko in the Northeast region. Ilyasu, what are authorities in the region saying about this?
Well, we've not been hearing from the authority. I spoke to the regional minister, not on this particular subject, but I asked him what has been happening in the region, and he mentioned that, and he said his understanding is that something might have happened around the Sahelian region, and that has triggered this phenomenon. But he has not been able to explicitly give me reasons as to whether the environmental experts or environmental officers in the region or the meteorological agencies in the region, whether they have investigated this particular claim. He did not say that, but he said he has also been experiencing it, and he will try and find some answers from the meteorological agency and then the environmental agency as well.
Ilyasu, thank you for that update. We'll be engaging the meteorological agency here in the capital to find out what answers they have for that. But the situation that we just talked about in the Northeast region, from where Ilyasu joined me, is not different from what is happening in the Upper West region, where we have our correspondent Rafiq Salam standing by with the details. Hello, Rafiq.
Hello, Gifty.
Rafiq, tell us, we've seen the situation in the Northeast region. How does this compare to what is happening where you are?
The situation in the Upper West region is not different. You can barely see from 100 meters away. Visibility is very poor. We are in a dry, hazy weather, and the weather is somehow very warm. And so this is uncharacteristic the past few days that we have experienced. But I'm thinking that this is not the first time that we experienced that storm in the Upper West region. It has been happening, but not regularly.
Well, if you say it's been happening regularly, what sort of explanation do, say, environmental agency, the Environmental Protection Agency or the meteorological agency there give this phenomenon?
I haven't spoken to the authorities that you have mentioned regarding this particular issue, because if you recall, last year we did have a similar weather pattern, and then we did report of it. But even when I got to the regional director of the Ghana Health Service, when I was to interview him on CSM, and in describing the weather and also describing the situation, so what might have been the factor why people are being infected with the virus, he mentioned the weather, the current part of weather that we are seeing today, which is really not good, because it talks about long-term plans that people are likely to have respiratory disease when we have a weather pattern like this continues, because it's even difficult to even see, because when you are inhaling, you virtually inhale dust.
Rafiq, you indicated that this is not new. What is new is coronavirus and the fact that this is a respiratory infection, and we're looking at possible respiratory infections as well because of this sandstorm. How do health authorities there respond to that?
The health authorities are not really happy with the situation because, like we said, talking about coronavirus and also this issue of this dust storm that we are having, just like a double jeopardy, a double agony for the people, because already the people are fighting two unknown enemies. Are talking about CSM and then the coronavirus, and so when you lump third one into it, it will be too much for the people at least to carry.
very disturbing, and we really sympathize with people who live in this region who are going through this. I mean, add CSM and add this sandstorm and then add coronavirus. Like you said, that's certainly triple agony, perhaps I should put it. But Rafiq, thank you very much for that update. If you live in the Upper West region and the Northeast region, I'd love to hear from you. Tell us, what is the situation? How are you taking this? What are you doing? What do you think can be done about it? Like Rafiq said, this is not new, has been experienced there before. Text us or WhatsApp us on 0540-109009. Let's get on the line again. I'm speaking to the acting head of Central Analysis and Forecasting Office of the Ghana Meteorological Agency, Felicity Ahiafanyo. Sorry. She joins me on the line. Felicity, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you too. Good afternoon.
So we're hearing what's happening in the Upper West and the Northeast region. Why? How do you describe this? What is happening? So much dust in the air.
Yes, we all know that this time is still the Harmattan season over the northern sector, and we have the dust storm being raised over the central and northern portions of Mali as a result of the intensification of the Alsos high pressure over the North Atlantic Ocean that reached down, and then the emanating winds pass over the desert and they blow the dust down to us. The process started on Tuesday, then yesterday it got much closer, and then today is over the upper regions, and then currently it's descending over the northern region, over Tamale. And visibility currently is less than 1,000.
If I can just interrupt you briefly, I'm sorry. I really didn't understand what you just said, and I really want to break it down, if you can help me with this. What exactly is that? I know that you took us through the process, and which is why we are experiencing this, but I just want to have a little bit more clarity. If you can break it down, if there's perhaps a different, common language you can use for me to be able to follow you, I'll appreciate it.
Okay, we have the dust that has moved over Mali by the winds, the surface winds, and then bring it down to part of Burkina Faso, part of Cote d'Ivoire, and then over Ghana. So we have a plump, or the concentration is over Ghana, part of Cote d'Ivoire, and then part of Burkina Faso. That is what we are having currently. It's a dust storm that has been raised that is moving around us.
Okay, so it's blowing from somewhere, gone through Mali, gone through Burkina Faso, and it's on us now here. I have a map that we got from the Meteorological Agency that we just put on a screen for our viewers to take a look. They're seeing it right now, and I believe that you have a similar view of it.
Yes.
Are you able to explain to us what we're seeing right now? I see the African map, a West African map, the African map, and then I see the Ghana map on it's on my left.
Yes.
Can you please explain what this is?
Well, the area that we are interested in over here is the one that is in purple or the pink. The first one, we have a lot of clouds, and then we have some purple cloud, but not too deep. Those are dust traces over the sub-region. But the one that is of concern, if you check the date on it, we have a dust RGB. Thursday.
It's Tuesday. It says Tuesday, the 14th of April.
Tuesday. That is when the dust is being raised, but we have some clouds that has covered it, so it's not so visible. Okay. If you check the next one that we have, the Wednesday, you will see that we have some pinkish color over Burkina Faso that was descending towards us.
Yeah.
And then the next one is the Thursday one that you could see that we have the dust all over the upper region, the upper west, and then the part of the upper east, even into Togo and then Benin. Now, you can see that we have the pink area, that is the dust that we are talking about.
Yeah.
And there is, so you can see there is one that there is a wind on it. So the wind is blowing all the way through the dust over the country. So part of those dust particles will still trigger down over the northern region itself, and then parts of the Bono Ahafo region, if I'm using the old 10 regions. So for in terms of intensity, those over the upper west region, they are having the worst of the conditions right now. Visibility is less than 1,000 over most areas of that place. So we are expecting this system to clear as the winds are blowing. By evening today, we have the moisture leading winds blowing over our sea here. It will blow in, and then it will aid it to form clouds, and then possible close it out, and then settle over. So towards the weekend, there will be relaxation, and then the dust will be thing of the past.
So I think there's a bit of an interruption in your line. If you can reposition for me, because I heard you clearly when you explained the pinkish shade we're having on top of Ghana, Benin, Togo. That is the wind, the south storm you're saying. And so I see it, and it makes perfect sense.
Yes, that was yesterday. I think
I'll have you reposition. It's still not very clear. If you can just adjust yourself a little bit where you are. I'm speaking to Felicity. I have Fianyo from the Meteorological Agency. Yes, please go ahead and let's hear you. You indicated that the wind we're seeing on top of the Ghana map, which indicates that, which explains what's happening in the Upper West and the Northeast region, is likely to trickle down to the other parts of the country, correct?
Yes, you are very correct.
Okay, and so go ahead, please.
So the pink areas, those pinkish thing that you are seeing, that is the dust that our satellite has interpreted it as pink. So once you see it over your area, you should know that you have the dust storm over you. And over the upper west region, they are having the worst. But if you check, you see that the concentration over there is quite higher than to the upper east region and then over the northern region.
So how long will it take, for example, to get to the other regions? So let's say the northern region obviously is closer, but coming all the way down, do you have an idea, how long it will take to reach which region? Yes,
the wind speed, if we were to be in the normal dry Harmattan season, by close of day to tomorrow morning, those dust particles should get to us over the middle sector and then later over the coastal belts. But by midnight today, we will have the moisture leading winds coming in. So as they come in, the dust particles are going to set the condensation look like. That is going to aid cloud formation. So instead of the dust coming down to affect visibility, to make it poorer for us, it will rather aid cloud formation. So we may not be able to see, but then it's going to cause something we call misty conditions and foggy conditions over the transmission zone and then over the Atlantic.
Felicity, it's really bad. I'm losing you gradually. I think I get the point you made about what we should expect later tonight, and the likelihood that perhaps throughout the week we'll have this trickle down, perhaps all the way down to Accra. But you said that there is a good part to it, which I missed.
Yes, we have a good aspect of it. Currently over Accra now, we are having some thunderclouds forming over every area. And so by evening, the winds will change their direction. As it changes their direction, the dust will also come in, but it's going to help in forming more clouds. So for us to have the dust, we will not experience it as those over the northern regions are experiencing it currently.
Okay.
So towards the weekend, there's going to be improvement in the dust situations over the upper west region and then the upper east region.
Right, Felicity, I say a big thank you, but is this, when it happens like this, would you say, is this new, first of all? Rafik tells us the region has experienced something like this before, but I'm not sure about the frequency. And for the Northeast, I don't know if it's, how frequent is this? Is it new? What can you tell us about that?
It's not too frequent over us, but in every 2 or 4 years' time, we do have situations like this. But climatologically, the Upper East, they are still in their Harmattan season. But we have it in a way that the dust, at times the dust doesn't reach, but then temperatures are always on the higher side. As you could bear me a witness, last week and then early this week, some stations were reporting around 42 degrees Celsius. Temperatures are quite high over that area. But then this year we have the Azores high pressure, I bet you, but there is nothing I can do about it. It's a picture that leads to this type of phenomenon. If it were to be weak, we wouldn't be talking about the dust that is happening currently. Under normal circumstances, it's supposed to be the dry and then sunny weather, very hot. But then this one, the good aspect is that it's coming to reduce temperatures for them a bit because the winds are a bit cold, so temperatures will be modified a bit for them. And then visibility will be very poor, and then at times it will be a problem to the lungs too. And it's a worst of the kind to them for now, for what is happening to them right now.
I just got a text message from one of my viewers that says, I think it is the entire region, the entire north. He's saying that he thinks it's the entire regions in the north because I just called my mother at Pusiga, he says, which is in the Upper East region, a border town between Togo and Burkina Faso, and the same story exists there. It's coming from Malik Yakubu in Kumasi. So it is possible that all the regions up there, I mean, you've explained that already, so we won't belabor the point. So it's possible that all these parts have it. But do we have an idea how soon they usually last?
For what is happening currently, as I said earlier on, by Saturday, there should be improvements in the visibilities over that area. In terms of relative humidity, the dryness of the air is also improved today a little bit, but the visibilities will still be poor. By tomorrow, around 12 to 1800, we'll also see improvement in the visibility. But hopefully by Saturday, Sunday, the dust will clear off, and then they will go back to their hot temperatures.
Okay, we'll be keeping an eye on it, and if it doesn't change, if it changes, whichever way, we'll come back to you, see if we can get some more analysis on that. Yeah,
definitely. We are also monitoring and we'll send you an update.
Right. Thank you. Felicity Ahafianyo is the acting head of forecasting with the Ghana Meteorological Agency. Most of you have been sending in some messages. Let's see if we can read some quickly, and then we'll move on to the next story. It says we should not allow these dust particles to get to leave devastating effect. It is uncontrollable. We must deliver good intervention, you say. I'm not quite sure what you mean, but thank you for sending in your message, Ameyao from Subing. Thanks for sending that in. This one says, I can just see what is going on in the Upper West and the Northeast region of the country, and it looks like the eclipse of the sun by Big Joe inside Odumasi Krobo. Big Joe, we don't know. The Meteorological Agency has described what it is. They didn't say it's an eclipse of the sun. Good afternoon, Gifty. Please send this information to the Vice Chancellor about the e-learning. Okay, you're sending in your e-learning frustration. That's the subject we'll be looking at subsequently here on this show. So keep your eyes glued on it. For Boko, from Boko, Adams is sending this from Boko. He says, we the residents in Boko are currently in semi-hell because of hot, warm, and dusty storm. I'm sorry about that, but you have to keep yourself covered and keep yourself protected. The Meteorological Agency can only predict and tell us what this is, but they can't really change it. All right. So thank you very much for sending in your messages. Let's move on from dusty air to talk about coronavirus, the biggest elephant in the room, if you like. Now, good thing is 83 COVID-19 patients were last night declared coronavirus free, and they were listed as recovered. Government even presented one of them at its Information Ministry COVID news conference to share his experiences with Ghanaians to get them to understand the need to stay at home and avoid contracting that disease. It was also aimed at dousing the issue of stigmatization against persons who have tested positive to coronavirus, and that's a big issue as well.
I was there and I received a strange call. Please, are you Mr. Frederick Dra? I said, yes. You visited the hospital this day? I said, yes, I visited the hospital. The gentleman there said, yes, they took your sample, and lo and behold, they found out that you are COVID-19 positive or coronavirus positive. In fact, it wasn't easy for me. I was trying to control myself. The doctor called me, the one who called me, and encouraged me that I should just disassociate myself from my family. Let me stay at one place and let me let my wife just attend to me and the rest of the children just go far. I was able to obey him, and since then the children were suspicious, but all the same, my wife was strongly behind me. She helped me, and The gentleman said they will ask for ambulance to come and pick me. I was so eager that the ambulance should come so that I can leave early. That fateful Thursday, the ambulance was not there. Tuesday, Friday, the ambulance was not there. Then Saturday, which was 21st, around 4:35 o'clock p.m., the ambulance came. That is the place where I saw myself dying. I really saw myself dying simply because of the information out there. I also know that, oh, the moment you are being attacked by this virus, within 2-3 days, you are dead and gone. I saw my wife and my children cry seriously. I have never sat in an ambulance before, but that day I sat in an ambulance, and the only thing that I can tell my wife is that I just wave her. Yes, I was discharged Sunday. I came home on Sunday. The doctors and the psychologists let me know that I should stay indoors. But after certain interviews that I did, my wife will go to town. The moment she comes in, she will just be crying. So she will not even grant any interview again. You just be crying. Why are you crying? When I went there, if the thing is there, they will say it is not there. I can remember I was going to barber my hair. I don't go out. One day I want to go and just barber my hair. I went there, the gentleman just saw me. He just said, and all, that is it. But the point is that at times I feel bad because I know my status. You don't know your status. That's why I want to get closer to you. Yeah. I know my status that I'm tested negative. Two. What about you? But you are rather scared of me. The stigma over my children, I thank God they are strong behind me. They go to town, some of them don't want to prove them. But I saw other police friends who also try and call and encourage me that I should go ahead. 19, let me tell you that is real. COVID-19, coronavirus, it is real. I'm telling every Ghanaian that this virus, it is real. So please, try and obey the lockdown, washing of hands, social distance, all other things that they be saying in the media and so on. Let us try and obey. I don't think every normal human being can be drinking water within the shortest time like that. Within the shortest time that I take water, my throat is dried. So I have to be continuing taking water. COVID-19 is real. Now, when someone is being tested positive, brother, I thought so. That's when I go, maybe 3 days I'll die. But when I went there, I realized that it's not like that. I went and I'm back. People will also go and they'll be back. So when you're tested positive, please, just go to the health centers so that they can take good care of you. They'll send you wherever you're supposed to go, and you go and come back. Meanwhile, COVID-19 and coronavirus just to be a gym to say if you say the beer you don't know. Me jitu say beer me Korea for me but I can't see it with my naked eye to say that it was from this man, so it can happen to anybody. It makes me to be so. And me I can't join the sereji ka bonu ko attack boy me do to government e ponu go for bonu wa homa na me go tai gaba wona me ko no homa oba to asi oba la won kala use sanitizer akoto to asi nchie magano hadonio na wona ma ga seto ba yimanya ka ta government la imasa go wa ka hama won
If as of now you don't believe that coronavirus is real, I don't know what to tell you. All I can say is stay at home. Just stay at home. I'll be talking to Dr. John Amoisi. He's a virologist with the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research. I'll also be talking to a clinical psychologist, Note Dua, who's also host of Ultimate Health here on Joy 99.7 FM, about the dynamics of a recovery as we're seeing these recoveries. We're hearing that some people have recovered but have had to, be taken back in because they tested positive again. How do we understand all of these? That's the conversation I'll have right after this. Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for continuing to stay with us. So, what sort of story should the media tell? A message that spreads calm and not fear, as the slogan has always been, or a message that actually lays bare the truth about the pandemic to get people to take the hashtag stay at home a bit more seriously so they will stay at home? I'll be exploring that as well. And that has to do with stigmatization also, which is one of the biggest problems of those who have recovered. I'll be talking to clinical psychologist and also host of Ultimate Health at Joy FM, Note Dua. Note, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thanks, Christy.
All right. And also the biggest issue is people who recover and then test positive again. And that's what I'll be engaging Dr. Amoisi from the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research. Doc, thank you so much for your time this afternoon as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let me start with you. We see this gentleman today who is telling us about his success story. He has recovered. But we're also hearing, and government tells us that they've had to do double tests just to be sure that people are actually negative. Let's look into the dynamics of the recoveries. We're learning that, first of all, before I bring in what we're learning, what can you tell us from where you sit as far as the recoveries and the possibilities of being positive again are?
No, thank you very much for that. I think it's really important to put things in perspective, and I want to take the opportunity to say hello to all your listeners, and for those who really do consider this as really important to increase or improve their knowledge and then inform others as well. So with the recoveries, we hear from the Ghana Health Service that there are about 83 recoveries right now.
Yeah.
This is not surprising at all, and is actually to be expected. We have 8 deaths out of the total number of cases that we have. And we know that this is a disease which, once you get, you are most likely to recover, although some will die. The thing is, what we see from the mortality is that those who die often end up dying within a week or up to about 2 weeks of getting the disease. So far, we've had a number of people who've had the disease for well over 2 weeks. It should not be surprising to anyone at all that almost all of these people are going to recover and be in perfect health. So we should be expecting a greater wave of recoveries coming in. In fact, the only reason why we may not have seen this earlier is I guess the authorities would like to concentrate their efforts on testing people who are likely to be at risk or who've been exposed, and therefore want to be sure about those who could be positive and we do not yet know. For those we know are positive, the idea is stay put, don't mix with others, don't put others at risk, and later, for lack of a better word, when we have the time or when we have the ability, we'll come back and check if you are totally free. The argument would be, why would you spend your time and limited resources retesting someone who's already positive to be sure they're completely disease-free when there are others out there who could be positive who you don't know? I'm not saying it's not important to do these serial tests, but when you have limited resources, you would focus them differently. So I guess now that we're getting a hang of things, and we have systems in place to be identifying people and run the tests, we can now begin to look at those who were tested and monitor them a bit more closely to see if they've recovered. And for me, if after 2 weeks of somebody testing positive, there's no further bad news, they're not in the critical to moderately ill category, then I would expect them to move into the recovered category very quickly, and that's what we're beginning to see.
Oh, interesting. So you're saying that people wouldn't necessarily need a test after 2 weeks if they're not critically ill?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay. Help me.
To ascertain recovery, you need to be tested and have a negative test. But what I'm saying is that in an emergency situation, and when you have limited resources, and when you are not too sure about how quickly this disease is spreading, you would focus your attention on those who are likely to have been exposed and would like to spend a lot more time seeking them out and testing them rather than conducting serial tests on someone who has already tested positive. So let's say someone is positive today, you'd want to come back after maybe a couple of days. Ideally, it should be every other day. To be very clear with you, every other day, and check what we call the viral load. I'm not a virologist, but I can tell you this, at least you need to check the viral load to see how much of the virus is in them and see whether the quantities or the levels of the virus is decreasing through to a point where when you do the test, you cannot detect any of the virus at all. And this is when you are declared to be disease-free. But when you don't have the time, you don't have the resources, you would like to allow the passage of enough time and then conduct another test at a point where you could be sure that if they are indeed disease-free, they would have a negative test. And that is what we're seeing now with the wave of recoveries that are being declared. And as I said, from the numbers that we have, we should expect a lot more declarations of recovery at this rate.
Okay, let me bring in Notedra at this point to find out. Note, he says to expect more recoveries. Now, the thing about stigmatization is that these people are having to go back to their families to be integrated back into society, but society is not ready to accept them. The media has been doing a great job, you know, well, I'm saying it for me because I know we put in a lot of energy, but the point is it looks like people still don't get it. What message at this point should people be telling? Should we focus on the recovery to say, yeah, this is it, it's been good, or, you know, to just calm the fears that have been stoked with coronavirus, or should we just lay it bare and say, look, this is dangerous, people have died from it, you can die from it? How do we deal with this stigmatization problem?
Right, thanks for the question. And I'd like to say that the media is doing it great. And there are various arms or pillars of the media. So we've got to start to understand this and unpack it. We have a duty to investigate this that we are confronted with in dealing with COVID and look at the different angles. We here that has to bring out resources with resource constraints. So if health getting the resource effective care, with our method, the media out. It's important to understand this. Now, having to look at this whole dynamic, whether you're bringing out that frightens people, scares them, and highlights the devastating threat by COVID-19. Now, what research tells us is that threat or fear-oriented messaging, there has to be a component that also what they can do to avoid the threat. So, for example, if you show a gory and then you're showing people the impact of wearing your seatbelt, then despite the fear content, people would tend to move behavioral direction moving. Okay, so if we're giving these messages, the Ghanaian public is getting messages that tell them what they can avoid the threat and how they can build their personal efficacy. Then I believe the media is on the right track.
Well, Note, I'm having a bit of a challenge with your Skype there. It's not as smooth. So we're going to have to call you back on that particular one. But let me go back to Dr. Amoisi. Doc, I didn't hear much of what Noche said, but the point he's making is for us to weigh out the effect of our actions in terms of communication. And I won't even bother you with that. Certainly, let's focus on your area. What we're learning as the media, and again, we're talking about how we send the information out. What we're learning is that there are traces of the virus in the stool of people who have recovered. What can you tell us about that trend?
Well, as I mentioned previously, I'm not a virologist, so it wouldn't be my area of expertise. But what I can tell you is that it's not everyone who's recovered who would have traces of the virus in the stool.
Okay.
Aside that, it's important to note that while we talk about traces of the virus in the stool, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is infectious. Because in detecting the virus, we are detecting genetic material of the virus. And in actual fact, for the testing that we're doing, what is done is actually when the sample comes in, it is deactivated so that it's no longer infectious. And then the genetic material is extracted, and then you test and confirm for it. So the fact that you can detect genetic material of the virus in the stool does not necessarily mean it is infectious. Now, I'm not saying that coming into contact with the stool is safe, but what I'm trying to say is that it is not something to be declared as a clear and present danger at this time. So it's really important to understand what we mean by being able to detect traces and when something is infectious and dangerous and needs to be guarded against.
Also, speaking of stool, is it possible, from what you know, again, I don't know if perhaps the fact that you're not a virologist will make it difficult for you to answer this, but I'll ask anyway. Will that also translate to what we can find in, say, sperms of men or discharge from women? I mean, help us here.
No, I think these are very important questions that you're asking. I can tell you up front that I don't have the answer for you when it comes to sperm and vaginal discharge and this kind of thing. But these are important things that I can assure you very soon there will be much more research on. Okay. With Ebola, as you know, it started exactly like this. The focus was on blood and on blood products. Later it came to even body secretions like the saliva and so on. And then later we realized that it was actually present in the sperm of individuals. And I recall, being at one of the treatment centers that was just about closing down in Guinea, where a colleague was working on exactly this, which is looking at the sperm of recovered individuals to measure how much of the virus was in there. So valid questions, we don't have the answers right now. And again, it speaks to the fact that there's a lot that we do not know. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we do not know means that we can only present what is known, tell you what we are uncertain about, and we need to exercise maximum caution. Of course, if later down the line it turns out that we were being overcautious, hooray. But woe betide us if later we realize that we were lax or we did not do enough. That will not be helpful for us. So we continue to recommend an abundance of caution. For example, with this disease, we started off by saying that it's people who are the extremes of age, the older people above 70 and so on. Mm-hmm. And we realized that this was changing from China through to Europe and to the US. Now here in Ghana and in Africa, we're realizing that it's maybe not so at all. It could be actually the younger ones who may be having it more. But the interesting twist is that majority are totally asymptomatic. We're not even talking about mild disease here. We're talking about not having any signs or symptoms of disease at all and yet carrying the virus. Again, speaking to the need for everyone to be cautious, because the fact that you are asymptomatic or really not having a hard time means that you could put your parents at risk, your uncles, your aunties, and loved ones at risk. And so it doesn't mean that anyone should lower the guard at all, but rather that we should exercise an abundance of caution until we have sufficient knowledge to inform any modifications to what has been recommended to date.
Very, very well said, to exercise all the precautions in the world that we can. But it'll be very interesting to figure out what the answers are as far as sperms are concerned, because people raise questions about sexual intercourse. I mean, we do know about the saliva and everything, but people have raised questions about that. And this stool thing is interesting also to get more answers to that. And I'm sure that as we go along, we'll get those answers. But before I let you go, our testing capacity. Today, we've heard that over 50,000, I believe, tests have been done so far. What's your own perspective to this?
I think it's really great that we can have this large number of tests being done here in Ghana. The last time I checked, we were second only to South Africa, and by a wide margin for the third country in terms of numbers of tests. I think that was Egypt. So the number of tests per capita is very high in Ghana, which is very excellent. It helps us to have a better view, although I still maintain that we do not have the kind of view that is sufficient for us to take very robust decisions about the way forward. Now, with the numbers of tests, it also gives us a better idea of how to measure our case fatality rate, because again, you're able to look at the numbers of people who are infected, the manifestation of the disease, and more importantly, how many are dying from the disease. And what we have in Ghana currently is what we call a case fatality rate, or mortality rate, which is a reflection, just a ratio of those who have died to those who have had the disease. And that's about just barely 1.25, which is very low compared to several other parts of the world. And so I should say we need to be very proud of the testing regime that has been put in place. And I want to take the opportunity to really salute and congratulate the team from the Ghana Health Service leading the testing teams from Noguchi, and from my own center here, my colleagues, Michael and Augustina, led by the director, who are doing the testing. Really great job that they're doing. I understand that we had just almost about 2,000 samples coming in about yesterday and today. So it's really a great thing. It's running 24/7, and it's helping to provide much needed information, but a lot more is needed for us to be able to see our way forward.
I did say that was the last one, but I had just two quick ones. And the first one is to find out from you what you make of doubts when people raise it about our testing capacity. People have said that we don't really have that capacity. They don't completely believe that we've been able to do this number of tests.
You ask a very important question, and to give you a very comprehensive answer would require going into technicality that would not be very helpful for your program, but I'll explain. There's a way in which these tests are done, and the virologist would give you finer details. As I said, again, maybe not too helpful for the program, but what I want to tell you is whatever has been declared as numbers of positive or negative samples is the truth as far as I know and from where I sit at our center here. Okay. The method of conducting the tests will vary from place to place, different parts of the world. And the approach is to optimize our ability to come to conclusions or estimates of numbers of positive will also vary. So what I can say is that currently we are using the most efficient approach to be able to run as many tests as possible. There may be more robust approaches, and the more robust the approach, often the less you can do within a certain time frame. So some people may be arguing that we may not be using the most robust of approaches. But under these circumstances, I would say it is the best that can be done, is what should be done, and it has given us at least the information we have accurate enough. There may be a margin of error, and even in the most robust of approaches, there is a margin of error. So I would sincerely like to dispel any notions that there is no possibility that we could have done X number of tests. The technocrats may be coming at it from an angle of using gold standard methodologies and approaches and estimating with that and realizing that that's quite a high number of tests to have done, to have been done. But from where I sit, I can vouch for what the numbers of tests that are being done as being fairly and accurate and an important approach to use in times like this. Okay. I need also to point out that there is a lot more capacity that we have in this country. The machines that are used for testing actually abound in many research centers across the country. The challenge is dealing with the samples themselves. Now, this is a highly infectious pathogen, and before you begin to do the testing, you need to what we call deactivate or inactivate it. You cannot do this just in any setting. You need a highly specialized setting to do that. So while some may argue that, oh, we have X machine and Y machine sitting here and there that can be used for corona, yes, it's true, but the accessories and the setup that needs to go along with processing the sample before you put it or whatever you have derived from it into the machine to the testing does not exist. So it's not as simple as others may try to point out. Again, this could be very technical, but I'm hopeful that these really basic explanations can bring the understanding home to cherished listeners.
It does for me, that the setup to process the samples in a way that's, if you like, standardized is what we're missing. But we should have, by all means, from your perspective, confidence in our system of testing.
That's right.
All right. Thank you very much, Doc. But before you go, I have a segment here on this show that's called The Frontline, which we use to celebrate people who are, you know, in the front lines of this fight against COVID-19. I believe that most of the people that you're working with fit in that category, perhaps including yourself. How has it been? If you can give us a brief response to that personally, on a very personal level.
No, thanks for that. I wouldn't personally consider myself on the front line, maybe on the front line of providing information to the public. It's maybe more in your category, but as a scientist, as a medical doctor, and also as a researcher. But for my colleagues here at KCCR, Dr. Michael Owusu, Dr. Augustina Silverkin, the director himself, who are really, you know, in the laboratory every day together with their research assistants, receiving samples, testing them. I see every day the cars pooling up and the samples coming out. And, you know, I come to work very early, I leave late at night, and I see the samples coming in. This place is running 24/7. And I just want to celebrate these gallant frontline workers who are providing very critical information, which will be provided, will be needed to make decisions. Also, my colleague doctors, medical doctors, who every day in their PPEs and are seeing patients at their own peril, but also recognizing the responsibility that lies on their head to provide the care that would help to reduce the risk to both those who are ill and, more importantly, those who are not ill. I think it's important, like it's been done all over the world, that we celebrate these people and recognize what they're doing for the entire nation.
And that's exactly what we do here, and we're hoping to do more with this segment that we've created called The Frontline. Dr. Moise, thank you so much for your time and your in-depth explanation. Dr. Moise is Head of Global Health with the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research there. Very important thoughts he's shared with us. He's saying that we should not doubt our capacity as a country when it comes to testing. He does acknowledge that there are some challenges as far as the setup itself, the setup to take the samples and to get them tested. He says that setup does not exist at the moment. He says, yeah, you can talk about margin of error when it comes to testing, but when we say that we've tested 50,000, we shouldn't be second guessing it, because we're using the most effective approach. There could be different approaches, but he's saying that we should be confident in our approach right here. And he also talks about the fact that after 2 weeks, what we can do as developing countries in terms of the resources available to us when it comes to testing and what we cannot do. He spoke about, I asked him the question about sperms and whether or not traces of the disease can be found as well in sperms or discharges. As we're learning, you can't find traces in stools. He said he doesn't have that answer, but that's an interesting aspect that we'll be looking for answers to. One of the biggest issues, like I said this afternoon, that we want to look at is stigmatization. Now, we want people to recover, but what happens when they recover and we can't take them back into society? Now, that's a tragedy. So my colleague, and I'll be talking to Notedwa about it. We lost him because of the connection, but we're raising him back on the line. Before that, though, my colleague Justice Beidou has been speaking to a family that has suffered stigmatization due to COVID-19. Here's a playback of that report.
They started telling the people who ride the motorbikes to go and spread the news.
This child has asked me to hide his identity. He says he's been through hell, and even though he looks scared, he wants the world to know his story. Hopefully, that changes something.
You don't know that you have gotten some, so you will not be talking about people soon.
I'll call him Oko. Oko's father is one of the people who are currently receiving treatment for coronavirus. Since his father was taken to hospital, he himself and others in his home have tested negative. But that has not spared him scorn from people who used to be friendly neighbors.
Now ever, no one comes to our shop to come and buy anything. As a result of that, my father asked my grandmother to close the shop. If people see that one of the people in this house has gone out, they'll even run away, or sometimes they'll be watching you, or sometimes they'll be mocking you.
These two sisters have also invited me into their home to tell me their story. They too have a brother receiving treatment for COVID-19. The attacks they faced has forced them to shut their food vending business. They've asked the 4 workers they work with to go home, and they've also stopped going to the market because since the rumor went out, everyone who meets them runs away.
The way they are treating us, it's as if we are the ones with the disease. You need to be tough to go through this. The whole town has been told not to come close to us. They do not even buy from us again.
I've lost most of my friends because of this problem. And I don't know what is coming ahead. Whether if school reopen, I'll work or not, I don't know.
From far away, somewhere in Europe, this woman too reached out with a familiar story.
Someone has been around the community and then the neighboring community to tell them that we've all contracted the virus. So
Her family back in Ghana has been through the same trauma, and even outside the borders of Ghana, she feels the heat too. Over Skype, she had a message.
I would plead with our government. They should also focus informing the general public about stigma, because the disease or the virus might not kill the person, but the stigma might.
This week will be a critical one in Ghana's fight against coronavirus, according to the government. But it seems there's a disease that is even more critical that the country is yet to pay attention to: stigma. Justice Beidou, Joy News, Accra.
I do have Notedra back on Skype. He is a clinical psychologist and also host of Ultimate Health on Joy 99.7 FM. He is also a part of the group that led, stigmatization talks, I should say, during the HIV and AIDS time. I think I missed it a bit out on that, but let's go straight to Note, who we had earlier. Note, you were answering some question for me earlier as to what sort of story the media should tell. We should lay bare the facts, or should we just try and focus more on not creating fear?
Right. Is it line better now?
Yes, it sounds better.
Okay, right. So what I was saying essentially is that we have a duty to cover all aspects of this story, okay? And that involves or includes laying bare the facts and the details to empower the people responding and also empower the people who are at the end of the response chain. Now, what I also said earlier was that when you use threatening content to trigger or facilitate behavioral change. So if I show you the danger you are in, the expectation is that you move towards protective behavior.
Yeah.
And what I was adding is that when you do that and you add information that enhances a person's efficacy or their capacity to take preventive or protective behavior, then the message works. So if you frighten me, but you show me how I can avoid the threat with good content, then you are doing a good job and you will achieve the behavioral change we're talking about. I hope that point is clear.
It is.
Yes. So if we show what happens and how bad it is in other countries. Yet we show the effectiveness of social distancing, the effectiveness of hand washing protocols, etc. Alongside that, what we're doing is that we're telling you what is bad, just like showing you a bad, gory road traffic accident, but we're also showing you how effective it is to wear your seatbelt. So in this COVID era, that is what we're trying to do. The media has to show some of these things, yes, but we must give, should I say, equal emphasis to the preventive, health promotive information and measures that people can take to avoid spreading this disease and to avoid complicating matters for our fragile health infrastructure.
Now, the latest angle to this story has been the recoveries. And of course, all of us are excited about that. We're told that we've done 50,000 tests, and 641 have been confirmed positive. 83 of these people have recovered, which we're all excited about. From where you sit, should we focus on the recoveries and show people that, look, this is not a do or die affair? Like, you can actually recover. People have died, but you can't actually recover. Or do you think that focusing on that angle to let people see less danger will actually jeopardize our efforts to make people act the way we want them or they ought to act?
Right, Gifty. Like I mentioned, we have a critical obligation to discharge, which is we must educate, inform, and in many ways transform the public and the listening public. So look at it this way. We're getting recoveries. And today you saw at the press conference, I think a gentleman called Fred shared his story. Okay? Right. On my end of it, this is called disclosure. Right? He's disclosed his identity and he's sharing his story. So we have what we call facilitated or assisted disclosure.
Okay.
Such that the person who discloses must be perceived by the public to achieve a positive end. Okay. So if after disclosing we find out that people are stigmatizing Fred more, then we haven't harnessed the disclosure and the positive aspect of his story.
Yeah.
I hope you're getting the point.
Yes, I do.
So the idea is that we need to put a face to the problem. We need to get people to see and understand their personal risk. How different am I from Fred? How did he get it? And what was the outcome for him? So Fred's story is critical and pivotal in the sense that it shares the fact that we do have response capacity. He did report and he did get support and treatment.
Yeah.
And he is better for it. And he's sharing his story. Where we keep it at the point of nameless statistics, and I'll come to the statistics in a bit.
Right.
People don't take ownership of the risk. And we've been seeing people going to the beach, people flouting the directives and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And you did mention that way back in 2011, I was part of a project we called Heart to Heart. And many of you may know that Ghana has HIV ambassadors. The idea behind this project was that we needed to put a face to the HIV campaign and get people to be able to translate this into their own personal risk with ambassadors whose stories they can identify with. So we had persons who've done, have had children, though they are HIV positive, so that tells the story of mother-to-child transmission and its prevention and so many other things. So in the same way with COVID, now we need to help the persons who recovered disclose in a manner that can be harnessed positively for this country to show that if we follow these things, these are the dividends that a country can yield. So yes, it's good. And I heard my colleague, Dr. Ama Edwin, this morning sharing on the AM show how we can use this to beat stigma. And then you just played the little boy who was sharing how his auntie shop is being, should I say, avoided by people, and the way people are, mocking them and so on. Once we get ambassadors and persons who have been assisted to disclose and share, and we make sure that the message is clear and they do not experience any negative outcome after sharing, then we are beating down the walls of stigma. Essentially, stigma is marking something in a negative way to be able to pull away from it or to shun it. So we want now to use these people as a critical, should I say, tool in the fight against COVID.
And just a question I want to put in there, Note, is that when we avoid nameless statistics because we want to deal with the stigmatization, we want to also look at the context. It looks to me like HIV is in a league of its own, and so is coronavirus. Coronavirus is different in the sense that with HIV, people have to live a lifelong, the entire life on drugs, on antiretroviral drugs. And are we able to compare that to coronavirus, which, as we know, we're still learning more about, but which also you can be treated and discharged, like people have just been made to go home?
Right. So, Gipti, let me help you connect the dots, and I hope it helps our viewers as well. Listen, when we started with HIV in the mid to late 80s, we were getting it from, as we call it now, imported cases, persons who had a history of travel, right? Okay. And because it was related to sexual activity and so on and so forth, we started judging the people and shunning them. So you traveled maybe to Ivory Coast or here, there, and we thought it was a disease of the prostitutes or this and that, okay? So we had the same trajectory as we're having now. We didn't know about it, we feared it, and we pushed it away from us, okay? Gradually, as we gained capacity, knowledge, insight, and, we started developing antiretrovirals and so on and so forth, we now have to move away from just sheer fear-oriented content to getting people to understand how HIV is transmitted, getting people to understand what you can do to protect yourself, getting people to understand what high-risk behavior is. And then we moved to a point where now we could actually, announce HIV ambassadors, persons who are now willing to say, I am HIV positive. So we can draw the similarities and join the dots. So now we started with a disease in Wuhan, far away, and people thought it wouldn't get to Ghana. We prayed it wouldn't get here. So we thought about foreigners, persons with travel history. Now we've got horizontal transmission. So community spread is here. And we've now got to use these, stigma-busting strategies to get people to comply and to support the effort and the battle against COVID. So yes, once we have disclosure and people are sharing, then it becomes easier to see that, oh, I know this guy, or he looks like a regular guy, and he's not afraid. I get it. I will also not hide it or run away from quarantine. I'll go into the process and be able to access the resources that we are touting Ghana as having. So that's the important, link between these conditions and the strategies that we can use to trigger behavior change.
Okay, so two quick things before you go, and these are things that I understand you've been doing some work on as well. First has to do with our testing. I just spoke to, this morning we had a briefing on the testing. We're told that we've done 50,000 testing. I just spoken to Dr. Moisi, who also indicates that, well, this is a good thing. We shouldn't doubt our system. What we should doubt, perhaps, not that we should doubt, but there are some, there ought to be a system for the samples when they are taken, etc., which is non-existent, but we shouldn't doubt our system. The Ghana Health Service says, the director of the Ghana Health Service says this is the second best on the continent and 14th in the world. Is this incredible performance, you'd call it, or since you've been doing some work on it, your perspective?
Gifty, let me say that nobody is averse to celebrating our achievement. This is about our country. This is about Ghanaian lives. So that is not the question at all. Okay? So if we have done 50,000 plus tests, and I'm emphasizing the word test, not samples. Okay? This is very important. If we collected 50,000 plus samples and some are yet to be declared, and we use that ratio to calculate our success or achievement, it could be problematic. So all I would say is that let's be clear that our response, our test capacity tells us, for example, we've had a press conference today which declared 50,000 plus tested. If we have a press conference tomorrow which declares 70,000 tested, the important critical question to ask is, do our test facilities have the capacity to have tested 20,000 in 24 hours? I hope you're getting the point.
Okay, so
right? So
if you can go over that again, I think I get it, but make it a bit clearer for me.
Okay, basically we're looking for an understanding, right? We've tallied ourselves and we say Ghana stands this high in terms of tests done, and then of course the rate or the case count. That's okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Now I'm saying that we've been following and we've been building capacity to test more. Now, I think if you look at the dates, 9th, 10th, and 11th April, we've had a couple of press conferences, and in each of them, there are big jumps in the number of tests we say we have done.
Okay.
That is fine. So long as these are declared and they are actually tests done and not the number of samples we've taken. Because what it means is that if it is the samples taken, then it means that we still have some to be tested.
Yeah.
Based on our capacity. But if we have done the 50, we collected 50,000 plus test samples and we've tested them, and this is our performance, my goodness, Ghana is exceptional and we're doing great, and I would applaud that. But we do have to ask these questions because we were asking about our capacity. So Dr. Moisi mentioned that they just received 2,000 or so odd samples. How long will it take them to process and declare those? Such that if we have a press conference and we say we've added those 2,000, everybody knows that the calculation, or as somebody would say, the fundamentals are right. So I'm very, very happy with what we're seeing, the recovery. And if I may, Gifty, a little word on the recoveries. The CDC has what it calls discharge criteria. And so we make sure we do these things before we discharge people. And I'm glad we're doing that, okay? And there are also protocols for recovered persons to follow. Let's make sure that recovered persons are following these protocols alongside the CDC criteria.
All right.
So that we don't get some of the upsets that other countries are getting with reinfection.
Yeah, yeah. All right. And then the next thing I wanted to end with is I'm also told that you've done a bit of work on, I asked Dr. Moisi again, whether now that we're told some samples or some traces of the disease are found in the stool of people who have actually recovered, whether it's possible to find any of these traces as well in, say, sperms or other human discharges. He didn't have the answer. He indicated that. But you've done some work around this?
Let me say I've done some reading and I've spoken, you know, I do ultimate health. I've spoken with the virologist. You probably have hosted Dr. Bertha Ai in the US.
Okay, we haven't done that.
And I've asked her specifically about, yeah, but we've been speaking to her, I think, on other platforms.
Right.
And the thing is that you find in discharge criteria the caution about potential transmission, or should I say, carriage of the virus in fecal matter. And so that is why when you are even self-quarantining and so on and so forth, they suggest, and in fact they insist that you should have different facilities, if it is possible, for your personal hygiene when you use the toilet and so on and so forth. Okay, these are concerns. It is not the same as saying, and it's not my field of specialization to say that there is actual, right? But if you check the discharge criteria, these are cautions that are raised, and I do believe that Ghana is following them, okay? And that is why he answered the question. I think he answered it to the best of his ability.
Yes, he did.
And I think when you have the virology, you can clarify, but we must look to criteria and the experience of other countries so that we can, should I say, observe the cautions that they have. And he mentioned absolute caution, and I think he's spot on when he says that. So let's be cautious. Even if you have recovered, follow the protocols that you've been given. And he also mentioned the resource constraints, that we can't afford to be using tests to be testing people who we think are okay. So we are not able to follow best practice. But at least the caution is that these persons must also help us to maintain the disease-free status and protect everybody else.
Nozi, thank you so much this afternoon for this comprehensive responses that you've given to our questions. I certainly will be engaging you more if you're available on this show.
Workers and everybody who's part of this response, including the media.
Right. Notedra is a clinical psychologist. He also hosts Ultimate Health on Joy FM, talking to us about a range of issues, I should say, especially stigmatization, which has been one of the biggest problems. We want people to recover, but when they recover, we're not happy to take them back in. And that's a problem we try to address with this. Let's take a very quick break. When I return, I'll take you to the Upper West, because we're told that some COVID-19 patients there, well, one of them has run away. He's on the run. We know also that this happened, and there's also a lady who was on the run that authorities were still looking for. When we come back, we'll get the details of that story. Just stay with us. Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, one of 7 persons who tested positive in the Upper West region is on the run. He is 46-year-old, a Nigerian whose name has been given as Simon Okafu Chukudi. The 46-year-old has been living at Wapani, a suburb of Wa, for the past 3 years. According to the Upper West Region Director of Ghana Health Service, Dr. Osei Kufo Afre, he was tested positive at the start of the week and asked to go and self-quarantine. Dr. Afre disclosed this in an exclusive interview with Upper West Regional correspondent Rafiq Salam in Wa.
About 4 days ago, our number of confirmed cases for Upper West region increased from 1 to 7. When we look at our data, we realize that 5 out of the new cases were people who came in from abroad and joined us, including 1 Nigerian who also joined and is tested positive. The other one came from Western region to our region to increase our numbers to 7. But unfortunately for us, one of our confirmed cases cannot be traced, having given him his feedback on his test results. And it's been very difficult trying to reach him. So currently, as I talk to you, we have at hand 6 of our confirmed cases, with one of our confirmed cases being a Nigerian who is at large now, and we don't know his whereabouts.
When you took the test, was he supposed to do self-quarantine?
Yes, he was supposed to do a self-quarantine. We went to even assess his locality, and his environment really is not a good environment that can be allowed for self-quarantine. So this is somebody that we need to self-isolate in our isolation center. So once we were able to give information to him that he's tested positive, and as such, he didn't even give us the opportunity to even discuss the next line of care that can be administered to him. So he just bolted away, and for a long time, almost 48 hours now, it's very difficult to locate him.
So what's the implication?
It has a very serious implication, because this is somebody who has tested positive, had been with us for a while, and I mean, there is a possibility of spread of COVID-19 in the Upper West region. So he's been to restaurants to eat, he's interacted with his friends, and now that we can't even find him, it means as I talk to you now, he's still interacting with people, and there's a possibility of spreading COVID-19 in the Upper West region.
Well, the Upper West Regional Commander of the Ghana Police Service, DCOP Francis Abuajenyako, said they've launched a search for him, and they're hopeful that he will be arrested.
And link with the Regional Health Directorate, and we are looking for the suspect. We visited his locations and possible places that we've been told he's been visiting. But as of now, we've not been able to locate him. But we are confident that we'll be able to locate him.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does you have something you want to say? I didn't ask you about. Thank you very much.
That's Rafiq Salam there interacting with the officials there. We have a picture of this person that's tested positive for coronavirus who is on the run, and we'll try and put that picture up for you to have a look at it, just in case you can stay away from such people. But we do have Rafiq Salam on the line to give us more. Hello, Rafiq.
Hello, Gifty.
Rafiq, what do we know? Has he been found?
Have they been?
Has he been found?
Not yet found in the Upper West region, and people in the region, especially the one municipality, are scared to the marrow because they know the implications of this man who is a Nigerian, a 46-year-old, who has been living in the one municipality, a suburb of what called Wapane, and for the last 3 years he's been there and then doing trading. And so the people in the one municipality are really scared about what they are hearing from the Ghana Health Service Director and the police.
And how, so he went home to self-quarantine. Have they been engaging his, say, neighbors or people in the community? What do they say?
They know his whereabouts. They know where he was staying. Actually, he says at the suburb in Wapane. Wapane is also located at the heart of the Wa municipality. And so Wa is a small place, and everybody in Wa is related and knows the other. And so it will be difficult if it's somebody who is in Wa here. He can't hide in Wa. Because I always say that you can't hide, an elephant cannot hide under bamboo. So what he needs to do is to move away from what so that he wouldn't be found. But people that he is living with, the area that he lives with, people are really shocked to the marrow because they know him to be a Nigerian, they know him to be a trader who is somebody that has been interacting with the people. Even like Dr. said, he was seen or spotted at restaurants and then chatting with people, and that's really making a lot of people scared about him.
Well, so Rafiq, the possibilities that the police seem to be working with at the moment is that he has left Wa, but do they know whether or not he's been able to leave the country?
They are not. They said they have come. When we spoke to the regional commander of the Ghana Police Service, DCOP Francis Aboadi-Nako, he stated categorically that as for Wa, they have combed the whole of Wa, and it's just and he's not been found. And so they are looking at other possibilities of extending their search, because already a search party has already been launched for him. They want to extend it beyond Wa, beyond the region, to see whether they can really apprehend him.
Rafiq, speaking of people like that, there are 8. We know that 8 people were also arrested. They were traveling from Burkina Faso into Ghana. Give us some more on that story.
Yeah, they were spotted. They came into the country through unapproved routes around the Sisala East. Ghana has a border with Burkina Faso around the Sisala area. So they came into the region through that unapproved route around the Kumu area, and then they were heading towards Fancy in the Wa East district. And that was where the people of Pidan saw them and then raised that alarm, and then the police came in and then and then intercepted them and then took them to the regional police, the district police, the Sisala East Municipal Command in Tumu. And so, as I speak to you now, I have spoken to the municipal chief executive Karim Monagno, and he stated that they have been repatriated back to their council. So they were taken back. To the border, and then for them to be repatriated to Burkina Faso.
Rafiq, thank you for that update. Rafiq Salam there. But here's a picture of the gentleman who is on the run. We understand he's tested positive and he's on the run at the moment. The police in the region are looking for him. Let's bring you back to the capital. We go to the press conference earlier. Well, government says just to spend 1 billion of your tax cedis on the electricity bills of all of us across the country, at least those who qualify. This follows President Akufo-Addo's announcement of electricity reliefs for Ghanaians to reduce the impact of the coronavirus outbreak on the population. Energy Minister John Peter Amewu disclosed this at a press briefing in Accra today. He also spoke about how you can enjoy those reliefs announced by President Akufo-Addo on electricity consumption.
The ECG lifeline customer population in Ghana, currently it's about 1 million Ghanaian. By the customer population, we are talking about the number of meters, but not the population of people. So we're talking about 1 million meters. In some households, we can have between 10 to 5 people using 1 meter. So you can average the number of people that we're talking about. The access rate today in Ghana is about 86-87%, which means about 86 to 87% of the Ghanaian population have access to the national grid. So this directive by His Excellency the President means that about 85 to 86% of Ghanaians would enjoy this access. The customer population of 1 million of ECG is about 27.4% of the ECG total customer population. This means that at a current tariff level, government is absorbing almost an amount of 8.5 million Ghana cedis per month. For non-lifeline customers, of which 2,780,886 are residential and 1,608 are special load tariff customers, a 50% discount on their electricity bill will translate into 235.4 million Ghana cedis per month. The total relief for ECG customers per month based on the estimated revenue is therefore 244 million Ghana cedis, translating into 732 million Ghana cedis for the 3 months commencing from April, May, and June. For NETCO, a total government relief for all customers is about 47 million Ghana cedis per month, or 141 million Ghana cedis for the 3 months period. This comprises relief of about 10.9 million Ghana cedis per month, or 32.9 million Ghana cedis for 3 months, for a customer population of 569,000 live customers. A percentage representing 60.67% of the total NETCO customers, and 36 million per month, or 108 million for 3 months, for 369,000 non-live customers.
Well, regarding testing rates and cases, Minister for Information Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah said the current rate count stands at 641 after 50,719 tests were made.
You would recall that His Excellency the President mentioned that the imposition of restrictions in Greater Accra and Greater Kumasi was to allow for something to happen. It wasn't just an imposition of restrictions or what they call a lockdown for lockdown's sake. It was to allow for something significant to happen. That significant thing is what we call the enhanced tracing and testing program. We had a target, a primary target of close to about 10,000 persons that we sought to test. As at now, as at last night, as at the latest figures updated by the Ghana Health Service, Ghana's case count, as I'm sure you have read on the website, is 641 positive cases. It comes out of 50,719 tests that have been conducted so far. That is almost 5 times, or about 5 times, the target of tests that we set for ourselves to literally lock down and conduct, to give us an indication of what to do next. So just a quick update this morning. As of last night, 50,719 tests have been done. The data I want to give you is about the rates that are being discovered in the tests. The tests have been in 3 categories. There is the normal surveillance test, which is what ordinarily we would have found if we were still using the old method. Under the normal surveillance test, 13,838 people have been tested under the normal surveillance test. people who suspected they had symptoms, etc., and got in touch with 112 and the phone platforms, or went to their clinicians to be tested. 13,838. 268 of them tested positive. That is a rate of 1.9%. So 1.9% of the people who suspect they are having symptoms tested positive. Then there is the mandatory quarantine, where the state decided that we'll mandatorily quarantine people and test them once they were entering the jurisdiction at a time that our borders were being closed. It was in two parts, airport and Tamale. So the Accra airport and Tamale. At the Accra airport, we ended up running a total of 2,011 tests. 2,011 tests. 105 of them tested positive. In the end, that's a rate of 5.28% tested positive. In Tamale, we ran 11 tests. 10 were positive. That was 91% of that. Then we had the third level of the enhanced contact tracing and testing. That is where now the public health nurses, immigration, epidemiologists are going out into the communities or the hotspots and are chasing, literally chasing or going or seeking to go ahead of the virus to find it and not wait for it to manifest. We have done a total of 34,859 tests in that enhanced contact tracing and testing category. 258 of them were positive. That is 0.7%. So if you put it together, as at last night, we had done 50,719 tests, and 1.3% of the people we have tested are positive. So it begins to give you a sense that this entire, what you call lockdown that has been done, for the major objective of literally trying to get ahead and find out how much of the virus we have in the system and deal with it, we are finding out, as at the data from last night, that just about 1.3% of the at-risk populations that we have tested are the ones that have tested positive. It begins to give you an idea of the level of challenge we have in the system. As we have mentioned, it is elements like this that would inform the president's decision of what should happen next.
The minister also spoke about funerals. Recently, there have been reports of morgues getting filled up. He says those at places that are not affected by the lockdown can go ahead and bury their dead only if they adhere to the not more than 25 directive. We can hear him.
Funerals across the country, private funerals across the country, apart from Greater Accra and Greater Kumasi, that have what you call the lockdown. Private funerals across the country fit into the earlier executive instrument, where they happen with not more than 25 persons. But in Greater Kumasi, because of the lockdown, that does not apply until that lockdown is mended or lifted, etc.
Let's take a look at disinfection. Now, waste management company Zoomlion Ghana Limited has so far disinfected 10 out of the stipulated 14 tertiary institutions to ensure the students return to a safe and coronavirus-free environment. The nationwide disinfection, which cost over 1 million, forms part of the company's commitment towards helping government contain and eliminate the coronavirus. Today, the exercise took place at the Ghana Technology University and the Ghana Institute of Journalism. Nancy Emefadradosi has more in this report.
Spraying began in the early hours of Thursday at the Ghana Institute of Journalism. About 30 personnel from Zoomlion with their spraying cans disinfected the lecture halls, administration block and other parts of the school. Principal Administrator in charge of the Physical Development and Municipal Services Directorate, Inusa Yakubu, noted that the school will also ensure that all measures will be taken to keep the students safe. He hinted of a possible class size reduction.
Measures. So the management put in place the water, what we call the Veronica buckets, and then the hand sanitizers. As you can see, in every entrance, there's a dispenser there. So that is the arrangement or the measures that management has taken. I believe it's not going to be difficult for us at all when they come to the social distancing. We will have to be proactive and then make sure all these measures are put in place when they resume. We have the SRC executives, the president, we have the grass stack. We'll collaborate with all of them and then we'll make sure all this will work effectively. Desperate, situation calls for desperate measures. I hope I'm right. So with this management, I'm sure they'll definitely do something about their class size. Definitely. Because if you want the social distance to work, definitely the class size has to reduce.
The team headed to the Ghana Telecom University and disinfected washrooms, eateries, and even the lawns. The coordinator of the disinfection exercise, Lola Asise Ashite, noted that the exercise was meant to ensure students in various universities across the country return to a safe environment.
I've already mentioned that we will stop at nothing to make sure that surfaces in all public universities are made clean and conducive for students so that when this thing also ends, students can come to school and feel free and feel safe to learn. We will stop at nothing, like I said, to make sure that this pandemic is kicked out of our country, Ghana. We're looking at 14 universities. We've done 5 universities. This is the next day. We're doing 10 universities by the end of today. And we're looking forward to doing the extra 4 before Monday next week.
Which 5 have you done so far?
Okay, so like I mentioned, today we're doing this 5. We have done University of Ghana, we have done UPSA, we have done Cape Coast University, we have done Central University, and we have done Central University also. So we have done Accra Technical University also. We've done Koforidua Technical University. I think we've done all these universities and we are looking forward to doing the rest before Monday next week.
Zoom Lion has already disinfected Ekropong and Mampong School for the Deaf, the Jolu Special School, and other universities. They are hoping to have some 50% discount to institutions that are willing to partner them to disinfect their properties. Reporting for JoyNews, Nancy Emefa Jadosi.
You're welcome back to the show, and this is Frontline, a segment that we dedicate to celebrate all our frontline workers. Well, I've spoken to a number of health professionals here on this show and on this segment, and most of them, if not all of them, speak about their uncertainties. They share with me the uncertainties they feel when they have to each day leave their homes to work and come back. The uncertainty of coming back home in one piece. Well, I talked to you about yesterday, the conversation I had with Dr. Abdallah and the sort of responses it has received on social media. In the meantime, a young gospel artist, Maurice McAfee, has put together a message for those working on the front lines who leave their homes not sure of how they'll return home. Take a look.
Everyone, this is Maurice McAfee right here. I believe we're all staying home and we're keeping safe. But unfortunately, there are some people that won't be able to stay home, and they are frontline workers. And to our frontline workers, I want to let you know that we are so much grateful for your lives, and our prayers are with you. Wherever you are, be encouraged, because there are times that you will have to give up, but because of us, you still move out. Just declare this. As I move out of my home, I will surely come back home. As I move out of my home, I will surely come back home. In Jesus' name, I believe, I believe, I will surely come back home. In Jesus' name, yes, indeed, you will surely come back home. In Jesus' name, amen. Hi everyone, this is Maurice McAfee right here. I believe we're all staying home and we're keeping safe. But unfortunately, there are some people that won't be able to stay home, and they are frontline workers. And to our frontline workers, I want to let you know that we are so much grateful for your lives, and our prayers are with you. Wherever you are, be encouraged, because there are times that you will have to give up, but because of us, you still move out. Just declare this. As I move out of my home, I will surely come back home. As I move out of my home, I will surely come back home. In Jesus' name, I believe, I believe, I will surely come back home. In Jesus' name, yes, indeed, you will surely come back home. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey everyone, this is Morris McCaffrey.
So Morris is a budding gospel artist, and I'll try and engage him here tomorrow so we'll have a hearty conversation. But yesterday I spoke to Dr. Abdullah, who is a neurosurgeon at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, where he shared a very emotional story of having to deny his 3-year-old son water because he was not sure whether or not he's infected. And we know that his samples have been taken. He, alongside his other colleagues, have had their samples taken because they've come into contact with a patient who tested positive for COVID-19. That was a very emotional story. We shared that story with you on social media. We've had over 20,000 views and a lot of shares as well. But some of you have very pressing comments. I'd like to share with you what those comments, some of those comments we're receiving on this. This one says, Beatrice, Ajuma, and Adrena. Okay, well, they're just alerting someone to take a look. Hajj Isifu said, all right. So, I share your pain. That's coming from Rosie. Says, Hadi Mohammed Abdullah tags him, says, I share your pain, but God loves you so much and nothing will happen to you. Stay positive. May God protect you from the virus. You see, Wahab said, upon all these, they are sharing with us some crazy Ghanaians, right? Will not be doing the right thing. He says, Eddie says, I guess all health workers must be in PPEs all the time because everyone is a suspect now. If this continues, then we are risking all health workers. Odeneho says, we'll get there, boss. Linda Asabia says, what the doctor is saying is very true. We are dealing with an unknown enemy in our various facilities where common face masks is hard to come by because we are not provided with it. Just 20 pieces of N19 face mask is 400 cedis. How many times can you buy for all this period? You may end up using all your salary to do this and never be recognized as a frontliner, but our God will keep us strong in Jesus' name. And so these are some of the comments that we've been receiving. You've been sharing with us on that interview that I had with Dr. Ibn Abdullah. The story is still there on our Facebook platform, is on our social media platforms. You want to take your time and look at it. And some of you have also been sending in your messages of appreciation. Thank you so much. This has been The Frontline today. Now let's head to Old Fadama. Yesterday we brought you the story of how their makeshift structures were destroyed. Well, many of the displaced residents there spent the night in the open after their structures were demolished. We're told to make way for dredging of the Kwale Lagoon in the Odo River. Nursing mothers with their babies strapped to their backs were spotted sleeping in the open by a JoyNews team.
No phone na eti ono. Play my phone ma be ya na my phone card na bokola. Ya play. O ma gare. Ya na nya.
Mo ko buo ya Ghana phone o baby kakra dan mo be gugu ye. Se enko na. Eda o mo ya se do bi asi.
Kuma ba bro. So bad.
No, menyan. For sure.
So that's how the night looked like for those whose makeshift structures were destroyed yesterday. My colleague Kwesi Wilson has been engaging some of them on their predicament, and which they say have been compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown. They want government to help to resettle them or transport them back to their hometowns.
How old is your baby?
He's 1.5.
He's 1.5 years. So how do you feel that both of you are here tonight and sleeping on your mattress outside? How do you feel, madam?
Please, I feel bad because where we were we were feeling good for ourselves, but for now we don't know the reason why we are out. And mostly they could have get something for us, a place for us to sleep, than sleeping outside. It's not good for me.
I was told that they were providing you with tents. Has any of the authorities come to you to provide any tent?
They didn't.
They've not done anything.
And they didn't do anything for us. They promised us that they will give us, and we didn't receive anything from them. And even we didn't see any of them here. And for now, we are sleeping outside and mosquitoes are biting us.
Okay. Thank you.
Now we don't know where we are going to sleep. That's why we be outside.
So how do you feel sleeping outside for the first time?
Oh, it's paining me because right now, see, it's my shirt that I'm using because of the mosquito. So I don't know where to sleep. That's why we are sleeping here. So we don't feel happy at all. So now we did a lockdown and the demolition took come. And now there's no way to go to our hometowns again. So now we don't know how to do.
So if you're asked to go to your hometown, are you willing to go to your hometown?
Oh, if we get car, we can go. Because if they open the way there, we can go.
Has the authority, the assembly, come to your aid? Have they come up with any provision as to where you sleep or something? Anything like that?
No, nobody come here.
Nobody has come here?
No. And we make our mind that there is no rally this year. Nobody should come here and say he's going to do rally. No. We are tired.
Okay. Thank you, boss. What's your name, sir?
Abdurazak Mohammed.
Abdurazak Mohammed. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
How many kids do you have? Do you have a wife, a child?
Oh, 2.
You have 2 wives?
Yes.
Why are they? Are they here?
Yeah, they are all here.
So why are they now?
Oh, now they're also here. There's no room again.
So is that your friend's place? Or
yeah.
That's your friend's place?
Yeah. They demolished my room. So now we don't get any place to stay.
And how many kids do you have?
2.
2 kids?
Yes.
With each of them?
You
have 2 wives?
Yeah.
I see. Okay, so now that you have 2 wives, 2 kids, you don't have a room to sleep, how are you going to care for your children or your wife?
Oh, for them they are outside here. They are also they are on this corner. They are also outside, no room.
So how will you care for them? How are you going to take care of them?
Oh, now I have nothing to do.
So how are you going to take care of them?
Now I'm not working. They are not working. So and this one to come. So now I don't have anything self. So now we are just praying to God. If they open the way, then we'll get chance to our hometown.
Okay. Thank you very much, Abdul.
You're welcome.
But I had me badama diachi. Enti edinyame panana tro oma ka na enko eku mo si yen sheda nda ma bebubu ye dan ama enti omo bebubu ye dan no si yen dan hefa enti edinyame panana tro oma ka na enko eku me yen hia hwi ohun se ye pese wu ma onko hu ni ye ohun se obi beda bonten na na ewura oma ye hu nya na ewura no bie kwan na enko eku ye yen pe hwi bia wa ha wa bo obi kuro no si kwa akọ enye hwe enti ye pamocho mu kwa mumbo na mumma asam we enkotu no no ma ye ka asene mu de me kan nyina no
Enti bencho na bela so
When I'm in the shaman, I am madam. None to my to me, now madam, my dear.
Well, this is where we end the show. Many thanks for staying with us. But there's more news at myjoyonline.com if you do log on. If you scroll all the way down on that page, our YouTube link is there. You have all of our programs from here on the Joy News channel there as well. Just stay with us here. Many thanks for your time.